Today's podcast is brought to you by Lake Effect Jiu Jitsu. Lake Effect is your friendly neighborhood Jiu Jitsu school. They provide top-notch martial arts coaching for all ages, including kids class, youth class, adult fundamental, and intermediate Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for gi and no-gi grappling. This is an incredible service that promotes self-defense, self-confidence, and self-growth. We are also brought to you by Marquette's only heated yoga studio offering vinyasa and power classes. Tulavesi Yoga's mission is to empower you to live your best life and foster a sense of connection to self and the community. These are two local businesses that I truly believe in and help make all of what I do possible. Without any further delay, here's the podcast. What's up, guys? Welcome to Information Operation. I'm Connor Ryan, and we're coming at you from Marquette, Michigan, bringing you your locally sourced ideas, thoughts, and inquiries. Today on the show, we have Connor Landick. Connor is a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competing at the international level. He's also a former competitive kickboxer and mixed martial artist. He is now a marathon canoe racer and a graduate from Northern Michigan University's Criminal Justice Program. I take great pleasure in introducing my good friend and training partner, Connor Landick. Connor Landick.
What's going on, brother?
Good to see you, man.
You too, man.
We are January 28th, 2018.
Yep.
This month is flying.
Yep.
Having a happy new year so far?
So far, things are going well, man. Yep.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Better than ever, man. New chapter, that's for sure.
Yep.
So let's jump in. Are you a Marquette native?
I am. Yep. I was born just a couple blocks from here, actually, at the hospital.
So you grew up here as well?
Yep. Born and raised.
Right on.
Yep.
And have you ever lived anywhere else?
I've lived briefly a couple times downstate. I was living with some friends that were racing canoes, and I was working on their hog farm. That was about it, though. Other than that, I've lived here my whole life. So.
Right on. So do you think there's any advantages of growing up in Marquette?
I think I had a lot of access to outdoor activities that a lot of other kids might not have had right outside of their back door. Was able to have that small town feel growing up in that smaller community, but still had a little more resources being right here in Marquette and
Absolutely.
things like that. So for sure.
And me coming up here from downstate, I think it's phenomenal, beautiful.
Yeah.
To have that resource.
It is,
man.
man.
Be able to go out your back door and you got acres to go play. You got elevation to go climb. You got the lake to go swim in.
Yeah, it's endless.
Endless.
It's truly endless up here. So.
And that being said, do you think there's any disadvantages?
I think that there's advantages and disadvantages to everything. So I would think, sometimes the small town feel can be a little more, everybody knows each other. There can be a little gossipy thing going on, but where does that not exist? It's hard for me to come up with too many disadvantages to living up here and growing up in a small community. I'm pretty grateful. So
that's awesome. The one thing I noticed is there's not as much live music,
Right, yeah. There's maybe as an adult more, it's like there's not as many clubs to go out to or nightlife, maybe things like that.
Yeah.
But where I'm at, I'm not interested in too much of that anyways in my life. It usually just ends up being a distraction for me. So.
Now, what do you think makes this place different?
That lake, for one. Having that lake right there is something special that not a lot of communities and cities have. And just, I think the amount of activities there are to do, like you said, that are right outside your back door make this a pretty unique and special place.
Yeah, and the UP is, it's desolate. A lot of people, I think, have the wrong idea of Marquette when you tell them it's in the UP.
Yeah.
They don't picture what we have here. They picture, back in the sticks. There's no access to anything.
Right.
How do you think it's different than the rest of the UP?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the rest of the UP is definitely a little more desolate, a little more spread out as far as people go. But Marquette is, I believe, the biggest city per capita in the UP, and that that definitely, like you said, you have those resources that you have living in a city, but then you also have all the advantages of kind of living in the sticks, and that's kind of been one of the biggest things why I've remained here as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and I really enjoy the community, and I enjoy having, not necessarily living so far away from other people all the time that there's still that connection,
Right.
but
You
then
get the
it's not
best of
so
both.
overcrowded that it's almost too much. So yeah, best of both worlds, I think, in a lot of ways. So
That's killer. And now, do you think you could even begin to compare it to anywhere else you've been?
it's tough, but I would say probably one of the closest places I could compare it to is like Boulder, which is weird because Boulder's so much bigger, but just like the feel, I guess, of that kind of outdoors mindset where people are constantly looking for activities to do that involve outside or the wilderness somehow. So there's definitely I've been to Boulder a few times, and I kind of it reminds me of Marquette a little bit, even though it's a lot bigger. But like the one thing that you can't ever have is that big lake
Right.
out there, and it's just there's something about that thing, especially in the summertime, that's hard to beat.
Right. And we talked about it being kind of like the biggest hub in the UP,
Right.
and it's grown.
Yeah.
I mean, how have you seen that growth since you've been around?
Yeah, I've definitely, there's a lot more businesses, and it's growing as far as its economy, I think for sure. One thing that I'm a little sad about is some of the development down by the lake shore.
Yeah.
I wish that we would have kept that clean there, so you can still see the lake. Um, but other than that, it's grown in good ways. I believe, the economy's growing. We're more businesses, more
Right.
structures, things like that. So.
Yeah, that kind of leads to my next question. Is it daunting or is it exciting for you?
Yeah, it can be nerve-wracking to think that um, we're gonna let that take over the wilderness feel, and I don't want to see it become just a huge city, I
Yeah.
guess necessarily. There's a line there where it gets to be too much.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's a little daunting at times, and um, I hope it doesn't get too big, I guess is my thing.
I think a lot of locals would agree with that.
Yeah,
I think I agree with that as well.
yeah.
Would you ever move away?
Yeah, I think there might certainly come a time in my life where I decide to move away, but it's quite a ways down the road at this point.
Right.
I'm working on some things here that I'm pretty passionate about, and I'd really like to see a lot of those things through for a while. So, but yeah, there might come a time in my life where I could see myself living somewhere else, but it is tough coming from here, and then it'd be tough for me to live in a really big city that doesn't have too many outdoors kinds of things to do. That'd be
Right.
definitely a challenge for me.
Right.
So,
What kind of stuff were you into growing up?
skateboarding was my biggest thing growing up for sure. I kind of played conventional sports throughout elementary and middle school. I played some basketball and soccer, but it was until I was about 12 or 13 that I discovered skateboarding, and that was my biggest passion for sure all throughout my younger years.
That's sick, dude.
It's pretty gnarly, bro.
What was the Marquette skate scene like?
Man, it was back in those days. There we had a little skate park at the YMCA, and
That
then
was around when you were.
yeah, well,
Okay.
but not the nice one that they had that you see now.
Yeah.
It was just it was a few like mini ramps, and it
Mhm.
was pretty small.
What year are we talking?
Um, this would have been 2000, around like 2005,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Okay.
So a while ago, 2006, 2007. I graduated high school 2008.
Right.
So yeah, it was around that time. And the scene around town was just us going around trying to skate everywhere and getting kicked out of spots constantly, having the cops called on us. People weren't super big on skateboarding, and I think that's probably part of the reason I liked it,
Right.
because no one else was into it. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a lot of getting harassed by business owners and things like that, which I understand. They don't want us messing up their
Yeah.
business or getting hurt in front of their place. But as a kid, you don't think about that. You just wonder why no one will let you do what you love to do.
Right. You just want to skate.
Yeah, I just wanted to skate.
That's
That's
kind
really
of
all
the
that
nature of the
mattered.
beast.
Yeah.
And how did How did the police react to some of those situations?
It depends.
You know?
I never had the best demeanor or way of talking to police because I always felt so kind of alienated for what I was doing that I kind of wanted to show them I didn't like them either. So,
Yeah,
and that ended me up in the back of a few cop cars growing up and things like that. But
that's kind of interesting with your criminal justice degree.
yeah, yep. I've, but I mean, a lot of the cops were cool. It depends. It really depends on the guy and the officer himself.
hmm
Uh,
What what did you take away from all that? I mean, you don't skate passionately near as much anymore, but what did you take away from your skating career and all the time you spent doing it?
I think the biggest thing that skateboarding gave me was the ability to really put my all into something and fail many, many, many times. You know, you go and
hmm
you're trying to land this trick and get it on film, and you're there for hours just trying to land this thing, and you're getting tired and you're wanting to give up, but you don't. And every time that you're able to land that trick, there's a certain feeling that is indescribable when you've worked really hard for something and you did it. You got to your goal and you accomplished and achieved what you wanted to accomplish. And that was probably the biggest thing that skateboarding gave me, was that willingness to walk through adversity just over and over and over and over again until I got the result that I was looking for. So,
Right.
and that definitely translates into life.
Big time.
Yeah.
With any, there's just that determination,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah,
That's
nothing's
huge.
gonna stop me. I'm gonna land this trick. I don't care what happens. I will land this trick. So that was, and that definitely translated into my life. So
That's huge. And being
yeah,
able to control that temper when it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
happen
Getting
too.
mad and getting angry and realizing that doesn't help you any, and yeah, I mean, I still really look up to skateboarders. I follow a lot of them on Instagram, and I watch the suffering they go through to try to get that trick, and it's crazy sometimes the slams they take, but they
Yeah,
just keep getting up, man. They just keep getting up, and they go back and they try again, and eventually they get it. So
exactly. I don't think a lot of people think about that when they envision skateboarders. They just punk kids.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, they're not
yeah.
really doing
And
anything
I'm not gonna
else.
lie, I was definitely a punk kid a little bit at times growing
Yeah.
up. So, uh, but yeah, skateboarding was a really definitely a positive thing for me at the end of the day.
And were you introduced to marathon canoe racing during this time?
So my dad's always been racing canoes or paddling his canoe for very long distances, either if it was racing or just doing trips. So I'd really been exposed to it. I think I went on my first canoe trip with him when I was like 5,
Oh man.
really young.
Right.
Yeah, like I went and he wanted to go on some trips, so I was like, well, I want to go. He brought me with him. We went down in the Ozarks and paddled. So it was it definitely, it had been around me my whole life, and I'd been to the marathon and watched my dad, do these races, and but I definitely I never thought I would do it. I never thought that it would be something I would be into um, until I tried it, I guess.
Right. You just kind of stepped into it.
Yeah.
Did he need a partner? Is that what you
Yeah,
stepped
well,
in?
I mean, he had always, I think, dreamed of doing racing with me. And it wasn't till I think it was around the time where I got into kickboxing for a bit before that, and I decided to try to do something else competitively. And so he introduced that as an option to try and see whether or not I liked racing.
hmm
And the first time I got into a race, it was like, yeah, we're doing this. It was just like, yep,
You got the itch.
yeah, I got that competitive itch and that feeling for grinding it out there, and it's something special for sure. So I just knew right away, I'm okay. Let's do the marathon.
It was like it was almost in your blood.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I'm sure it is. Yeah, it's definitely in my blood. Um, so yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how it works. I don't know if most people do. How long is a race? How long does it take you to run a race? I mean, it's not 26 miles.
So yeah, it depends on the race. The race I've referred to a couple times called the marathon is down in Grayling, and that race starts in Grayling and goes to Oscoda. So it's 120 miles. Um, and it usually takes around 15 hours to do the race. I think my fastest time that I ever put up there was a 15:29.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
15 hours just to be awake is like
Yeah, yeah, it's
That's gnarly.
and you go through the night at that one. You start at 9 at night and you paddle through the night into the next day and you finish around noon the next day. So that and that is my favorite canoe race of all time. But I mean the I've done races. The longest race I ever did was the Yukon River Quest, and that's 444 miles. And it's a stage race. So
Right.
the first leg's about 20 hours of paddling. The second leg's about 15, and then the last leg is 9, and
See,
you get break periods in between. It's kind of like a dog sled race in that
I
way.
was gonna
So
say it's like,
yeah,
how do you
there's
prepare for something like that?
um lots of long hours in the boat.
Yeah.
I think I mean I really think that there's comes a certain point. I think you really only need when you're out training to go for around 6 hours at a shot. After that, it just becomes mental training. I don't think you're training your body much more at that
Right.
point, but it is training your mind to overcome those really lows you hit when you're out there for hours at a time and your mind is screaming at you to stop. And you
Right.
gotta just keep pushing through it.
Endure.
Yeah. So when I first started racing, it was just doing long hours and trying to get my mind accustomed to that, and realizing the ups and downs you go through. You feel good sometimes, sometimes you feel so bad you want to just fall out of the boat. But you know, you eat something, you get some calories, you drink, and you feel better.
Yeah.
So
And so these races take place on all kinds of bodies of water.
yeah, so the marathons on the Asable River, the Yukon River Quest is on the Yukon River.
Which, Alaska?
That's close to Alaska. Yeah, it's really close to Alaska. It's still in Canada, but it's in that same. You know,
Right
it didn't
on.
get dark at all. We paddled through the night, and it got like dusk you know, about like 8 o'clock at night in the summer is what it looks like.
So this is
It stays.
not only a competitive endeavor, but you're traveling like
Yeah,
around the
traveling.
continent.
I've traveled to Quebec, Canada, to do races up there. Um, New York, Lower Michigan, Yukon. Um, so yeah, I've done a lot of traveling, traveling to races and traveling to train
Hmm.
and lots of things. So that was one of the coolest parts is all the different parts of the country I got to see and
Absolutely. It's
experience. So
eye-opening.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure the nature of the sport is pretty eye-opening too.
Yeah, yeah.
How what's one of the biggest challenges you faced?
The in a race, the biggest challenge, the hardest race I ever did was the Yukon River Quest.
Uh-huh.
There's a specific level of like physical and mental discomfort that one pushes you to that I've never been pushed to in another race. And but part of why the race was so hard is because I really wanted to win that race, and we had a team, and we thought we were going to go up there and kind of walk away with it. We didn't see anybody in the competition that was going to be able to hang with us until we got out there, and there's this team, and they're kind of pushing the pace on us, and we grinded and tried to stay with them for the first 20 hours, and I really used way too much energy in that first leg trying to
Hmm.
do that, and then they'd gotten some distance on us by the first leg, and I just remember getting back into the canoe after the first leg, after they had put a considerable amount of time on us, was one of I didn't want to get back in. I wanted to stop. And my dad was just he kind of smiled like, "Nope, that's not going to happen. We're going to get back in and we're going to keep going." But that was and I remember getting back in and I just cried, just crying for the first like 15 minutes of paddling, just and that was more so overcoming the realization that we weren't going to win the race
Right.
and then still having to grind it out and finish.
Right.
That was definitely the most challenge I'd ever faced in a race, or probably ever actually. And
At that time.
at that time, as far as canoeing had gone, um, so
And what kind of what does that do to your relationship with your father?
oh man, if anything, I think it's brought us really close because there's something special about going through challenging things with another person,
Yeah.
and getting through it together. And so I think that brought us a lot closer than we ever would have been able to be otherwise. So I'm extremely grateful that my dad and I have got to do the amount of racing we did together because um, I don't think you can gain that kind of relationship through any other means sometimes. That
You
ability to
know,
go through struggle and overcome it together is really special. So
Right, and it put him in the role to guide you.
totally, yeah,
That's
totally.
awesome.
Yep.
Do you guys have plans coming up?
So yeah, we have the crazy idea to paddle up the Colorado River in the section of the Grand Canyon. So we'd be
Whose
paddling.
fucking idea was that?
It was actually our idea when we were. So my dad has already done it once in a C1 on his long trip that he did when he was a young man, around my age actually right now. And him and his partner, Verlin Kruger, paddled up the Colorado River, paddled and lined and portaged. You can't paddle the whole way. You have
It's
to
not
get
a
out.
straight shot.
Yeah, you have to line the boat. You have to drag it with a rope. Sometimes you got to portage it all together.
To navigate rapids.
Yeah, there's some rapids you
waterfalls.
just can't paddle up. There's just too much. You
Yeah.
gotta but whenever we can, we'll be paddling.
It's in the mountains, right?
It's in. It is. I mean, anytime you're going upstream, you're going uphill. That's definitely what That's why it's going downstream.
Yeah.
So, but it's in the Grand Canyon. So
Yeah.
there's a lot. Most everyone we see is just they're going down. They're going down the current, which most sane people do. But I think I knew my dad had done it before, so I know it can be done. For one.
And you're not racing anybody.
And we're not racing anybody. We're just out there paddling. It's just we're racing against ourselves, and we're just the biggest goal is to just get there, to just make it up. So it'll be about a 21-day trip. That's about what it took him the first time. It could be a little longer.
Yeah.
Depending on he was in really good shape, paddling shape when he got there the first time. And I won't be doing as much paddling in the lead up as he was doing, and neither will he. So we might have to start a little slower, so we don't get injured or push too far early, and then get hurt or get sick or whatever. So
is that your biggest concern?
Yeah, honestly, I think the biggest concern to not making it is slipping on those slippery rocks, those sandstone rocks. They're super. The current makes them really slippery because they're, and so if we were to slip and fall and hurt a shoulder or just
twist an
weird,
ankle,
that's really honestly the biggest threat
changer.
To not making it up. All other things would be able to overcome unless one of us got really sick or something like that.
Do you guys have to wear those felt shoes? On the rocks or what?
Yeah, my dad's he just bought some nice river shoes that they got some good grip, but then they're still like river shoes, so it's kind of tough you don't want to be barefoot or wearing flip-flops or something like that, that's for sure. So, but then you also don't want to be, every little bit of weight we have in the boat counts, especially when you're going upstream like that, so we want to be as light as possible too.
So you're carrying camp supply? Because it's 21 days. You're camping in the wilderness for 21 days.
Yep.
In and out of the boat.
Yep.
You're bringing camping supplies with you.
Yep.
How does that affect your camp supply when you have to carry it for the entire, how many miles?
Oh man, I wish I had the exact number.
Hundreds.
It's a ways. And the biggest challenge is just overcoming the current, like you said, and getting up the river.
Yeah.
But we'll have a resupply halfway up. So there's like a halfway mark that we're gonna stash some food, so we don't have to carry all of our food the whole way. So that'll be about halfway up. We'll have to hike up out of the canyon. That'll just be a day. We won't be paddling that day. We'll just hike up, get our resupply, hike back down, camp, and then keep going the next day.
What are you eating?
Oh, it's just a lot of, processed food for sure.
Yeah.
Beans, macaroni and cheese, canned tuna,
Mountain House.
salmon. Yeah, you gotta keep it pretty.
No nanners.
Right.
No nanners or
not a lot of nanners or anything that's gonna go bad in the sun right away. So yeah, it's gonna be. We'll do the best we can. I definitely try to eat clean, but there's definitely a lot more companies now that are kind of taking that into account, making good, healthy food too. But that's not just
especially a long-term trip like this.
Yeah,
because you can't fuel yourself for 21 days with garbage.
No,
macaroni and cheese.
You don't want to, but my dad got through back in the day, back whenever they did it last time. So I think so. Yeah, and that definitely wasn't even as much of a thought. It's just like, fuel's fuel.
Yeah.
And on some level, it is. When you're working that hard and you're burning that many calories, it's almost like whatever you put in yourself is going to be used for fuel
Right.
right away.
Right.
So I'm not too worried about like overeating on carbs or
Right.
anything
That
like
makes
that. I can
sense.
eat as much as I can get in, basically.
I mean, you
But
gonna take fishing pole or a gun? Do some
no gun. We're
hunting,
not even
fishing?
allowed to have a gun because it's in a national park.
Okay.
So, and we shouldn't have too many encounters with like wildlife or anything like that, because it's right in the canyon like that. There's
Right.
not a
There's no food source.
yeah. We won't have to worry too much about like bears or anything like
That
that.
freaks me out being around a river because river are fish are bears,
Right.
and that's like
Yeah.
bears are one of my biggest fears.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you should have a healthy fear of bears, I think. But my people ask me that all the time about the gun, and it's nice to have when you need it, but then most of the time you probably won't need it. But like you said, when we're in the canyon, we're not even allowed to have a gun because
Mhm.
it's just national park rules. You're not allowed to carry a handgun in any of them. So, but there are times where my dad tells a story about his buddy Verlin who had to shoot. He shot a bear with a flare gun because it was coming up on his tent and it was just
Right.
kind of hanging out outside, sniffing the outside of his tent. So he loaded his flare because they didn't have a gun. Shot it with the flare. I
Ran
don't
off.
think the bear just sat there. No, it didn't run off. It just kind of sat there. It eventually did take off. It didn't mess with him, but it didn't even work. He just kind of was like, "Hmm." Which is, honestly, I think is somewhat true for a gun too. If you had a bear attacking you, it'd be great to have a gun.
Right.
I'm not sure it would stop it from eating you at the end of the day.
No.
It's gonna keep walking through
No.
those
If it
things
wants to.
unless you hit it
If
in the
it's
right,
hungry,
really good spot or something. But yeah,
Nate would know more about
you
that
would.
stuff.
Yeah, Nate would be a good guy to have for this.
Yeah.
But
So, what would you say the biggest takeaway from canoeing has been for you?
man, how much going through physical discomfort is a good thing in your life. I think that's the biggest thing canoe
Yeah.
racing gave me. And competitively, to transfer it into other sports, it was always like, now that I'm doing Jiu Jitsu, it's like I got a 6-minute match.
It's nothing.
And I've gone out and went as hard as I can go for 15 hours.
Yeah.
So it's like 6 minutes,
Yeah.
no worries. I
Yeah.
can, how many do I need to do? Let's go.
Right.
So that has transferred hugely into my life, into my other competitive endeavors. Just knowing that I have the ability to overcome great amounts of physical discomfort for many hours at a time, and I can
It's huge.
overcome it. And that's invaluable.
Absolutely. That's huge. That's what any kind of training did for me,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
So you said you were kickboxing when you first started paddling.
Yeah, I got into that when I was around 18.
Uh-huh.
And then I did a few fights, and I didn't want to continue to take shots to the head. Was my biggest thing when it comes to kickboxing and mixed
Yeah.
martial arts, was knowing the result of getting hit in the head a lot and not wanting to take those consequences. So I
How
decided to
long
go.
did it take for you to learn that?
Oh man, my dad was he was harping on me from the first, when I started it. I got
Yeah.
into boxing, and he's like, "Oh man, what, let's not do that."
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But it was just something I had to do. It was something. For one, I'd always loved martial arts and was always really into it from when I was a kid. It was always just really cool to me to watch movies of martial artists, and
So that kind of sparked it.
that's definitely sparked the interest. And then there was a time where I went through a situation in my personal life where I had been put into a spot where I felt, or I did need to defend myself, and I didn't have the tools to do it. I didn't feel ready to defend myself. I didn't know what to do
Right.
to defend myself. And that was when I really, after feeling that, I kind of was like, I never want to feel that way again. I never want to feel helpless like that. Like if I need to protect myself, that I don't know exactly where I want to go.
Right.
That was what really got me like, okay, I'm going to find a gym and I'm going to learn to fight.
I only laugh because I know how far away you are from that today. From not, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But so that what made you stick with it once you started, once you got in the gym and you had a coach? I mean, who were you training with?
I was training with Gary Swanson and Al Mitchell. And Gary was just man, he was an awesome guy that really pushed me to my physical limits and mental limits in the gym. He was a good coach and a tough coach. You know,
Right.
he didn't let me get away with much. He kept on me. And we trained hard, man, and he definitely gave, that's where my confidence came from in my first fight, was
Yeah.
not from myself, but my coaches,
Yeah.
Al and Gary, and yeah, I'm really grateful to have found him. And
So, how did you decide to take that first fight?
I think, so there was something in me that was scared. It was like, Gary talked about fights, and I was like, man, I'm scared to do that. That sounds
Yeah.
really scary.
Did you tell him that?
No,
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 exactly.
I didn't
Right.
talk about that really
Right.
with him
Right.
too much. But it was, I knew it was there, and so that was my biggest, like, deciding factor into, okay, I got to do this. I got to overcome this fear of fighting, because if not, it'll always be there, right? So I just got to go see what it's about.
So it was your own decision.
It was, yeah, it was definitely my own decision. And there's times when you're doubting it, you're training and 2 weeks out, you got to go fight somebody basically. And it's like, why am I doing this again?
Hmm.
It's easy to ask yourself that question, but I knew deep down I couldn't walk away from something that scared me that much. I had to go see what it was about.
Yeah.
And then once I fought, man, that feeling of elation and, oh man, that's that intoxicating feeling of being victorious after you were just so scared to get in there, that you didn't even want to show up, but you did it. You showed up, and you made it, and when you win, it's like it's the best feeling in the world, man. I can't describe any other feeling that's greater in that moment.
I understand.
Yeah, I know you
That's
do.
gnarly.
Yeah, it's a beautiful feeling, and so that's what I think led me to continue to do it for a while after that.
So it's safe to say you got the itch.
Yes. Yeah.
How many fights do you have?
I had one kickboxing fight, and I had two mixed martial arts fights, and then I had like three pancration matches, which
Okay.
are similar to MMA, but it's more of a grappling based
Body
style.
shots
There's
only, right?
no punches to the head, so you really have to be able to finish with submission. Otherwise, you're probably going to go to the judges' scorecards. So
And what did each fight do to change your mindset? You think it was like steps, or you already had that mindset and you just ran with it?
I think every time you get in there and overcome it, you grow stronger in your mind and your ability to overcome, and what you can overcome. And I think just the more times you go through that emotional roller coaster of competing, the more comfortable you just get doing it, and the more you realize, I used to put so much on the outcome of every competition that, I've realized now, especially competing in Jiu Jitsu, that, there's nothing that's going to be made or broken in that one fight necessarily. You can use it a lot more for a learning experience than necessarily having to have a certain outcome.
Right.
I was lucky enough to never experience a loss fighting MMA or kickboxing, but man, you do it long enough, you're going to run into that guy who's got your number, and so I think the stakes are a little higher when you're getting hit in the head. Your biggest thing is just wanting to win so you can be safe, basically. You're in there and you just want to
That's
get the guy out of there so you can go home safely.
that's an interesting dynamic to me because, I have not stepped in the cage to punch somebody in the head.
Right.
What are you most afraid of? Are you afraid to lose? Or are you afraid to get hurt, like permanently damaged?
Man, I think I was always more afraid to lose than I was of getting hurt,
That's
which
baffling to
is
me.
baffling. But
At the same time, you got all your hard work on the line.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what you want to call it. If it's pride, if it's ego, if it's what, but I just know my biggest thing was just wanting to win with every ounce of my being, and that's why I trained as hard as I did. And that's why I fought as hard as I did, and whether or not you'd think you'd be a lot more afraid of getting hurt, but I think there comes a point in your mindset and there's a switch where you know you're going to do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So what is helping sitting here thinking about all the things that could go wrong help you when you're in there? The idea is to just get in there, put as much pressure on the guy as you can and win so you can go home safe. But I don't, at the end of the day, I'm a competitive person. No matter what I'm doing, I want to win. I want to be the best I can be that on the mat that day, whatever it is. So that kind of translates into a lot of things I do.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever take another fight?
Oh man, it's tough to say. Probably not at this point. I've thought about it a lot. I've had people talk to me about it, and it's like even now I feel that I'm the best martial artist I've ever been. Way better fighter than I was when I was fighting
Mm-hmm.
competitively. So I feel there's still a, what if, what I just want, it's just that need to test yourself is still there.
You think that a lot of that's mental?
Yeah, and it's also, I think it's just also the knowing what's on the other side of it, that feeling of victory is like we talked about earlier. It's hard to forget and you crave it. You want it again. You want to experience it again. You want to go through the suffering of it again and overcome. But at the end of the day, I can't get past, one, taking damage myself, and two, I have a hard time wanting to hurt anybody else.
Yeah.
Which, if you're going to get in there, you shouldn't feel that way.
Right.
That mindset will get you hurt then eventually if you're having trouble getting to that place. But I just really, I care about people. And also I know what brain damage can do. And man, I'd never want to be responsible for that on any level in someone else's life.
Yeah, I think that's admirable.
Nor do I want to take that damage myself,
Right.
which I'm not. I understand the sport. If I get in there and fight, like you said, man, you're going to take damage. You're going to take losses. It's a brutal sport. It really is.
So that led you to transition into strictly practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes, that was, when I realized I could train really hard and compete still and go travel and have new experiences, but I don't have to get hit in the head. It was like, man, awesome. Where do I sign up?
Right.
And yeah, that's been jiu-jitsu for me. And I can still, man, the emotional roller coaster I talked about that you go through in a fight, you go through that in a jiu-jitsu tournament too, and there's so much you have to overcome mentally and physically to step out there and give it everything you have, that it's a beautiful test of the human spirit, there's no doubt.
Now, do you think it's harder in any ways?
There are certainly aspects about it that are harder. I have to fight a lot of times 5 or 6 matches,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to go through that emotional roller coaster of the match
full spectrum.
5 or 6 times,
Yeah.
Whereas you go into a fight, it's one fight, you're done.
That's a day.
It's over.
That's 2 days
Right.
of ups and downs.
Right. And yeah, so that tournament setting where you got however many matches, and there are definitely things that are, man, jiu-jitsu is a tough sport. And it's like you said, there's the people that can compete and do it at a high level to me are incredible.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing, and you're putting yourself out there, you're putting yourself on the line.
I mean, you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're competing at a high level,
Yep.
right? Internationally.
Yep. Yeah,
Guys
man,
from all over the
I'm
world.
fighting great, guys that coming from all over. They're good, man. They're good fighters. That I'm in that blue belt division, and it's usually it's the biggest, it's usually around 30 guys in my bracket. So
Yeah.
there's just so many fights that you have to win,
Right.
But I feel grateful just to be on the mat and testing myself against, those guys, and it's been a crazy experience, and it's been a good one though.
Now, what is that giving you that you weren't getting out of fighting?
Well, I think honestly, like I said, what this has done for me is taken off some of the importance that I placed on winning,
Uh-huh.
and how much I thought that was the only thing that mattered. Because I've had tournaments where, I'll go out and I'll win and I'll get exactly the result that I was looking for or I wanted, and I come to realize that, it doesn't make you happy. any longer than it can for that period of time that you're feeling
Yeah.
elated from winning. And afterwards, life is no different than whether or not you won or you lost. It can't sustain your happiness. And I used to actually think that. I used to believe that competition and winning and being perfect out there could somehow make me happy, and it can't.
Right.
So jujitsu's given me the ability to discover that for
That's a
myself.
huge understanding. That's a revelation that you can carry into like any situation.
And yeah, and I try to, in the sense that I realize anytime I'm putting expectation on something, it's probably not going to work out the way I wanted. And if
Right.
even if it does, it's probably not going to give me the feeling that I thought it would.
Right. And the other cool thing about that is you don't have to hurt anybody.
No,
You
right,
know,
not at all. Nope.
it's up to them.
It is, and it's up to you too. I've seen guys let go of submissions because their opponent wasn't tapping when they would
Yeah.
have got hurt otherwise,
Yeah.
and I think that's admirable in a big way. I
Absolutely.
think that when you start to realize that, man, winning isn't always the most important thing in life, you start to become a little happier too.
Right. And to make sense of that, we should probably we should probably let people know who don't know. How would you explain Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
It's a form of submission grappling is the best way I would put it. Um, it's a system of grappling that uses joint locks and chokes and positional control to defend yourself in a real life situation.
Hmm.
There's a lot. It's all about using leverage and somebody's force and strength against them, and you use your technique to dominate them and make sure you keep yourself safe and
Hmm.
you get home to your family. That's really at the end of the day what it is.
Right. So, bare bones, you take them down, you submit them, and it's up to them. Like we're talking about, they don't have to get hurt
Right.
because it's submission based.
Yep. So you put somebody in an arm lock, and they know that they're beat. They just have to tap out, and then you won't destroy their arm.
Right. But
But
otherwise,
yeah, at the end of the day, it is a form of it's a martial art, and that means it's there to dismantle another human being essentially. But
right.
I try not to get that dark with it when I'm going out to compete. It's just I'm just trying to have fun and do the best I can.
Right.
But yeah, it's certainly it can hurt someone, but that's what is so cool about being a jiu-jitsu practitioner is that it comes with responsibility, just because you can hurt someone doesn't mean you should hurt someone, and if
Right.
you can ever avoid not hurting someone, you should avoid it.
Right.
So
And for people who don't know, how is it effective in a fight?
it nullifies, to me, the biggest thing it does is it nullifies explosive movement. So if you have somebody that's bigger than you and could throw a big wild punch and land it and knock you out, as soon as you take that fight to the ground, his ability or her ability to do that gets diminished greatly to knock you out with one punch. So, and then the idea of it behind it is to tire someone out by using your grappling, and then taking whatever you need to stay safe once they've expended all of their energy,
Right.
thrashing on the ground and fighting, not knowing what's going on.
I feel like a lot of martial arts get a bad rep for being this like just voodoo, like mystical, like movement where I've seen videos online where it's like
Oh
you
yeah.
just use the power of your voice and they
Yeah,
will
yeah,
fall
there's a
to you.
lot of
I think
fake
martial
martial
arts gets
arts
a
going on
bad.
out there for sure. But to me, the biggest representation of that was Hoist Gracie in the first UFCs, just coming out and dominating every other form of martial art with relative ease as
Right.
being the smallest man in that competition.
Right.
So
So for all skeptics, YouTube,
YouTube it,
Hoist Gracie.
UFC one, yep, 1993. That was
Shit works.
it works. It's effective, and and especially for self-defense, I think
For smaller
the
people.
smaller people, and then your percentage of being able to stay safe goes up so much when you can grapple.
Hmm.
And I think that's why I think it's the best martial art for self-defense because, if all you can do is head kick the guy or land one big punch to put him down, well, what happens when he ties you up and it goes to the ground? Or what happens when you trip and then he's on top of you?
The one thing I get kind of mixed feelings about is that what if you're in a situation where multiple people are coming after you?
Yeah, it's not nearly as effective then.
That scares me a little
Yep,
bit.
it's really definitely more effective in a one-on-one situation. But it depends on how fast you can, if you can put the person to sleep really quick and then get up and deal with the other guy,
Yeah, if he's
then
not
sure.
kicking you in the head.
That's the tough part
Yeah,
is if you're getting kicked, if you're getting self-defense is never as perfect or as clean as you want it to
right.
be when it comes time to have to use it. Um, but like I said, for multiple attackers, you're probably going to want a gun for that one.
Right.
If we're being honest,
Yeah.
that's
So what are some keys to becoming like a proficient practitioner?
uh, keys to becoming proficient is. I mean, and I'm certainly on that journey myself and just getting started in many ways. But it's showing up is a
I
big thing. Just
I gotta
showing
say,
up.
I think you've done a phenomenal job progressing because I mean, I remember in the basement of US Muay Thai hanging with you going, back and forth, left and right, and then I take some time off. I take 6 months or whatever it was, 8 months, come back and you're just a killer.
Thank you,
And I
man.
got nothing. I got
Thank
nothing
you.
for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time traveling down to Madison with Mark Plavkin and then with my coach Nick Lauer here, and he's helped my growth and development more than any other person. And so just showing up and doing what those guys told me,
Hmm.
and training hard, that's where it came from. It's just showing up and putting the work in, and that's really what it takes to become proficient at anything, I
Yeah.
think, is just, and being willing to fail, being willing to fall down and get up
That's
and keep
huge.
going
That's huge.
is huge for becoming proficient because there's no way you're going to become proficient in anything without lots of times falling down and failing and not getting the results you want and beating your head against the wall, but then coming back, all right, what do I need to do? All right, all right, I can do this.
I hope my wrestlers are listening right now because man, they need to hear that.
There's,
It's
there's,
huge in
there's,
anything.
yeah, you can always keep growing in something, but you got to be open to growing
Hmm.
and starting. That starts from admitting that you have more to learn.
Right. And what was that breakthrough moment when you were like, man, I'm sticking with this. This is for me. This is mine.
Um, I think there was a time in my life where I was going through a really dark depression, and jiu-jitsu was the only thing that would make me feel better.
Hmm.
It was medication didn't do it, eating right, whatever I had to do. Nothing gave me that freedom from my own internal suffering as much as jiu-jitsu did. And I mean, I've been sold on it ever since. I
Yeah.
can't ever feel that good doing anything else.
Right.
And it helps me deal with emotional suffering and pain on a deeper level than anything I've ever found. And so that was when I was like, I want to do this as much as I can.
Was that before you started competing?
Um, yeah, that was before like really started competing a lot. Like last year I competed as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
That and I had that realization, just a few months before I got my blue belt. So about 2.5 years ago or something like that.
Right on. And what did competing do for your jiu-jitsu game?
Oh man, that made me go on leaps and bounds. It showed me what I had to work on. It showed me, why I was losing, what I had to do in order to not let those things happen again. And it was also a big learning experience and overcoming again. I lost a lot, and I lost more
Right.
doing that than I'd ever lost doing anything else.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, you're gonna keep going, or you're just gonna give up. And it wasn't a question for me. It was like, what do I got to do to get better? What do I got to do to win the next time?
Right.
And really, it's easy to let the failure get to you, like, I just, as opposed to looking at it like motivation,
Right.
as an opportunity to grow and get better. And I think that's what competing did for me the most was start to reframe how I view negative, or how I perceive them as negative or failures, I look at them now as, okay, this is an opportunity to grow and get better.
That's huge. Um, that kind of answers one of my questions because I've competed 4 times now, and it seems like jiu-jitsu is a self-centered practice. So I kind of continue to ask, is it necessary to go challenge others to keep progressing? If you want to keep getting better, do you have to compete?
No, I don't think you have to compete to get better. I think if you can handle competing, though, you can gain about 6 months of knowledge in a day if you can go do it. There's
Right.
certainly examples of guys that don't compete that are in their black belts that become very proficient in jiu-jitsu
As technicians.
as technicians, 100%. I mean, I don't know how much Danaher has competed, but he's one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong about that. I should look into it more, but
Fact check.
he there's you don't have to compete to get really proficient, but I think to me, for me personally, I just love to compete and I
Yeah.
love to test myself and I love it. So that's why I do it. But I also think it can speed up the growth process substantially, especially if your ego's in check enough to not let it become more than it is when you do lose.
What do you mean when you say that?
It's easy, I think, for guys, if they're going to compete and their only goal is to just win, I just want to win, I just want to win. And if they don't win, they feel like they didn't get the result they were looking for. So they don't go back and compete again. As opposed to, okay, well, I didn't get the result I was looking for. What can I do in the training room? What can I do in my life to make sure I do get the result I'm looking for next time?
Hmm.
That's, I think, the thing that competing can do for you and for when you run into stopping points or blocks or plateaus, it can help you push through those and remember that, man, we'll get through it.
Yeah. Have you had your ego checked?
Oh man, I can't tell you how many times, many, especially in competition. Driving, across the country and not eating much to do it so I can make the weight and step on the scale and fight, and then getting a round in or losing in the first round. I mean, I've driven down to Chicago and not eaten for a damn near a week just so I can go fight and lose in less than a minute. It can be hard. That can be tough. It can be tough to go back and take that as a positive
Hmm.
sometimes, especially when you feel like you put everything you could possibly put into it. But I think the thing to remember in those times is that however you're feeling in your loss, one, it's going to get better. It's not going to stay that way forever.
Right.
And two, you always have the opportunity to grow and get better from every negative experience. I think those are two huge things that competition can do, but it can also break people. You see some people walk away and never even do jiu-jitsu again. And that's really sad. That breaks my heart because it's like it didn't have to be that way, and it is. I think people are afraid to be beginners, I think sometimes, or to feel like they don't know. And
In,
it's like
in any
I don't
pursuit, in
in,
anything that's
in anything.
difficult.
Yes, and I try to keep of the mindset still and always when I'm practicing jujitsu is that I don't know. And
Yeah.
somebody certainly knows way more than I do, and I that's the only way you can learn. As soon as you start to feel like you know something, you don't, because you're not going to keep growing. You're not going to
Right.
keep learning then. And competition is a way to always keep learning, because I don't care who you are, man. I don't care how many times you've won in a row. I don't care. There will come somebody that will beat you,
Yep.
and that will be better on you than on that day. It doesn't mean they're better than you every day. It doesn't mean they're better than you at all. It just means they were the better man that day. And so it's always a way to keep getting that ego checked and tested and make sure you're continuing to grow.
Now that's so valuable, not only in the sport but in life, just to be able to say things like that. Do you think there's any other ways to get those lessons?
No.
No, hands down, not at all.
No, I think failing and getting up from your failure is truly the only way to know what you're truly capable of and how much you can take as a human being.
Right.
Because we can take a lot and we can keep going through everything. That's how I feel. There's nothing that ever has to stop us.
Is there anything that compares to the mindset of a competitive jiu-jitsu match?
Oh, in life?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Every day. I mean, I think just getting up and being first sometimes, you know, getting up early, getting to work right away, starting to chase whatever it is you want to chase. You know, in jiu-jitsu, if you get behind quick in a match, it's going to be tough to make that time up. I think in life can be the same way. I mean, we only have a certain amount of time on this life, so let's use it to the best of our ability and moving forward and progressing as much as we can. And in jiu-jitsu, my goal is always that. It's the
Right.
same. It's to get going, get grinding, and get learning as much as I can so I can be the best practitioner I can be,
That you can be.
that I can be. And that's my potential alone. I can't compare myself to another's potential. I have a certain amount of potential, and I have the ability to reach it. But it's on me to do the work. It's not
Take
on anybody
advantage of
else.
it.
Yeah.
Now, why is a foundation like a solid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community and team important in all of this? Because you're not alone out there.
No. It's huge. It's the biggest thing, I think, that to me, it's for one, that community and those people in my life that have been the closest to me in jiu-jitsu have given me a feeling of family that, you know, it's hard to gain anywhere else. And like that feeling of when you have a team, you guys, when you're training together and you're going hard and you're sweating and you're an hour in and you both would certainly like to just sit down and sit the next round out, but you're going through that struggle and that pain together.
Right.
And that builds that a certain bond that, like I said earlier, I don't think you can build through any other means
Without challenge.
without that challenge. And also in jiu-jitsu, you really got to trust each other, you know, because you got to trust each other with your arms, your legs, your necks, doing submissions. You know, you got to make sure we're not hurting each other. So there's got to be a huge level of trust between training partners and teams that, you know, I'm not going to try to get this armbar on you just to make you tap, even if that means hurting you. I will let go of the submission.
It's hilarious that we're talking about this right now. That we were there.
Yeah,
We were.
we've had to learn those lessons on our own.
Yeah.
You know, you and me used to beat the crap out of each other in the basement, and now we realize, well, if we want to go far, we got to go together.
Yeah. And I mean, Nick helped with that.
Nick's
in
helped with a
huge way.
lot, everything.
Yeah. What has he done for you, you know, inside jiu-jitsu and helping you understand some of those values?
Um, he's helped me gain a deeper level of understanding for myself than probably any other human being in my life up to this point. On the mat, he's helped me discover a ton, and he's helped me to show me when I'm forcing things, when I'm not letting things flow, when I'm not using my technique,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm using strength, and I'm using power.
Athleticism.
He's tried to help me avoid any mistakes that he's made. He's told me about so that I can avoid them on the mat and in my life. And he's my biggest mentor and coach. And he's helped my jiu-jitsu grow immensely, but the biggest thing he's helped me grow is my life. He's helped me grow in life in leaps and bounds in ways that I could never thank him for.
In what ways?
My ability to overcome adversity and not give up when things get tough. My ability to look at my own ego and not let it run the show. Not, you know, he's helped me to make rational decisions when there's times where if I let my ego decide what I was going to do, it wouldn't be a good thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's given me a place to go in life that I feel happy and I feel free, and that's something that I've struggled with.
I think a lot of men, young men, struggle with that. They don't have mentors.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of mentors out there who are guiding people with the energy to do something great.
yeah,
I think the world lacks mentors in a lot of ways. And
I agree.
I hate to impose my opinion so much, but he's done a lot of the same things for me,
Yeah,
and it's hard to express the appreciation that I
yeah,
have.
it is, man.
Um, he's almost, I mean, he's almost a master himself in
He's
my eyes.
yeah, he's coming up on his black belt.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, how long does it typically take to achieve that? I mean, it's
it's
variable,
kind of 10 years is kind of what they say, but
right?
it can be long, it can be shorter, it can be longer. I think Nick's been doing jiu-jitsu for about 10 years, and he started in MMA in the
Right,
same way. So
right,
he he kind of came up in the golden age of it, where they were just beating the crap out of each other every day to train. And but
yeah.
it's he's certainly helped me to avoid any. What I appreciate the most about him is that he's given me all of his knowledge that he's gained to try and help me live the best life I can.
hmm Do you see yourself going down that same road?
I, I don't. I'd love to. I'd love to be able to do that and provide that for other people at some point. Yes, and I hope that I'd love to get there.
Yeah. So you envision going all the way down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've come to realize that this is what I love to do, and I'd love to find a way to just sustain a living on it so I can do it as much as I can, and I can help implement positive change in as many different human beings' lives as I can through jujitsu.
hmm You think you'd do it till you're dead?
Yeah, I think I'd be happy
That's awesome,
doing
man.
that, because I think, especially like I said, if I can be affecting positive change in people's lives, I'll do that until I'm dead all day. Because that's truly what makes me feel the best. And jujitsu's just been the biggest engine for me to connect with human beings and
Right.
feel like I'm helping them, they're helping me. It's beautiful.
Have you ever thought about quitting?
There are days where like it'll be so hard in the gym, or I'll just be so overtrained, or I've pushed so hard that it's like, man, why do maybe I need a break.
hmm
Maybe I gotta stop doing this for a while. But if I take a day off, as soon as my energy levels recover, I'm just hungry. I can't wait to get back there, and I can't wait to get back in the gym and back on the mats. And um,
There's nothing that can replace that.
no, I think there's been times where I've thought about not competing again,
hmm
but when I really look at it from an objective standpoint, it's only because I feel like I can't handle the pain of loss. That's why I wouldn't compete. And I can overcome that, because I think that pain of loss isn't even real on some level. It's only if you let it be. It's only
Right.
if you let that failure slow you down. So it'd be really, really tough to imagine my life without jujitsu and without the people that I've met through it, the community that I've been just taken into. I can't imagine my life without it. And no, I don't.
Me neither.
I can't. It'd be tough.
I think that's a common that's a common feeling in the community.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think it does that for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think so too.
Are you competing anytime soon?
Yeah, I'm competing at the Chicago Open. I believe that's April 23rd. I think
Sick.
so. A couple months from now. I'm planning on going on a trip here in the next uh, week. About a week from now, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna travel down to North Carolina, Charlotte, to train with Lucas Lepre at his gym, and then I'm gonna go to Orlando and train with Bruno Malfacini, who's like a 9-time world
Dude,
champion in his weight.
he's so legit.
And Lucas is also so legit. I can't even. And I've been around those guys, and just the kind of energy they give off and the kind of people they are
Right.
really is another reason why I feel confident that I'm getting into the right sport and
Mm-hmm.
right lifelong practice because I look at the way these guys live their lives and they're good people.
Right.
They're good human beings and they genuinely want others to be happy and they want to help them grow as much as they can.
Right.
And to me, that's jujitsu. That's what jujitsu is and what it should be. Um,
And by the way, people, this is your job.
right,
This is your job
right,
to go do this stuff.
right. So I'd love that's the dream, you know.
Yeah. And how are you preparing long term for that competition? And how do you prepare long term?
How I train for the next competition or for like long term.
Yeah, so the next competition. Because
Then
I
yeah,
mean, you're still, a few months
yeah.
out.
The next one, I'm always just trying to build my technique. I think I'm not really ever worried too much about my cardiovascular ability, just
Mm-hmm.
because I have a lot of confidence in that, and I have a lot of confidence in my physical strength. So the biggest thing for me is trying to get better technically,
Mm-hmm.
get better at jujitsu. Because the guys that I've ever been beat by are usually guys that, I didn't feel like were in better shape than me or were stronger than me. They were better at jujitsu. They had better technical ability, and it showed hugely. And so that's always my goal, and
Number
that's my
one
goal
priority.
always is just to build my technique and get better on the mat from a technical standpoint because I have all the other tools I need to win.
And you do strength and conditioning.
Yes, of course. Yeah, you're my trainer. I do it with you.
How do you notice that? Do you notice a improvement in your game on the mat?
Yeah, my hips feel a lot heavier than they ever used to, like
Mm-hmm.
from deadlifting and things like that. That was a huge thing, and it helped my base. I feel like my balance,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously grip strength is,
Yeah.
I just feel really strong when I grab a hold of somebody's gi, and I definitely feel stronger than I ever did before I started strength training with you. So that's definitely helped me. I think my theory about technique is that if you have good technique, you can put the strength on behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it really helps me, is when I can get my technique right and then I can use what you've helped me with as far as getting stronger to implement it into that technique.
That's awesome to hear. I mean, we put some time in.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Um, and now we're implementing yoga into the mix.
Yep.
Do you notice any improvement in your game because of the yoga?
I think I think I'm going to more and more too as I go down the road, but the
Mm-hmm.
more flexible I get, that's going to be huge just for longevity in the sport and taking care of my body, I think
Yeah.
is the biggest thing yoga is going to help me with. And the kind of meditative place it puts you in your mind is a good one, and I think is one that's essential to success competing. I think you have to be able to calm your mind enough to go out there and fight and use your technique to the best of your ability. You have to have a clear mind,
Even when you're
almost
uncomfortable, even when
even when you're
your
uncomfortable,
face is in the
right?
mat,
So yoga's you that is yoga,
Yeah.
It's like you get in these uncomfortable positions and you got to push through and you want to just sit down, but it's like, nope, let's find a way to relax here. Let's
Yeah.
breathe
Yeah. Breathe. That's a big one.
and let's get through it. And so I think mentally might be an even bigger uh, advantage there from doing yoga and things like that. But
Yeah.
then,
I'm excited to see how that turns out
yeah,
for you and me both.
yep, I'm really enjoying it
Right
for
on.
sure. Yoga's awesome.
Shout out to Lavessa Yoga.
Yeah, big shout out.
So what about short term? How do you prepare for your competition short term? Like, let's say it's the day of the match and you're about to go out there, within an hour. How do you, how do you view your opponent? That's my curiosity because I always just hate him. You know?
Yeah, I used that a little more, I think, mindset when I was fighting.
Yeah.
Because you got to get in that almost mindset where you're okay with hurting someone. In jiu-jitsu, I don't focus too much on my opponent or what he's doing, or I honestly, the things that I'm thinking about, or where am I going with the match, and what direction am I going to take it in, and
Right.
what am I going to do to implement that right away so I can be first and I can decide the direction the match is going. So I'm just thinking about the grips I'm going to make,
Mm-hmm.
um, and breathing and trying to stay calm and keep my emotions in check
Right.
before I step out there. I usually have a game plan of exactly where I want to go. As soon as I get out there, we slap hands and I start going and I
Mm-hmm.
try to be first.
Because it's just another body,
Just
you
another
know.
body. I try not to get emotional about it. I try not to make him an enemy or anything like that. I smile at him, and I respect the hell out of that guy because I know everything he had to go through to get there that day. Because it's the same thing I had to go through to get there that day. So, and without him, there'd be no me. I wouldn't be out there competing if I didn't have my opponent.
Right. Do you
So,
treat each one the same?
yeah, yeah, everyone the same. I smile at them,
No
slap
matter,
hands, bump
you know
knuckles.
their name. You don't get obsessed with what their game
Never,
plan
because I
is.
found when I start thinking about what their game plan is, it throws me off of my game plan, and
Yeah.
I might somehow try to change my game plan because he's good at this or no. I'm gonna go out there and do what I'm good at, and I don't care what he's good at. I'm gonna shut it down.
Do you even watch them? Do you even
I
watch them
try not
before?
to.
That's
I
awesome.
used to more. I used to kind of like watch him and like watch his matches and everything. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm trying to stay focused on what I'm gonna do in my game.
Right. And what role does confidence play in that? Confidence in your game plan.
Huge. I mean, I think but the confidence to me comes in the training room and it comes from the repetition you've put in. And the
The
more
honesty
right,
of the training you put in.
right, like how hard did you train? How many reps did you put in? And usually the harder I've trained, the more reps I put in, the more confident I feel.
Hmm.
And to me, that's where my confidence comes from, is just hitting a move on somebody over and over and over and over and over again in the gym. I know I can do this when it comes time to do it live,
Right. Like those skateboard tricks.
Yeah, yep, just repetition, man.
It seems like those two things have helped kind of lead up to what you're doing right now
For sure.
in a big way.
For
The
sure.
consistency
Yep.
and the willing to endure
Yeah.
the pain.
Huge. Hugely.
And then I'm sure new things come along that Jiu-Jitsu's given you. Those things could have never given you.
Yeah. And I think the biggest one is like I said, that closeness you have to the community
Hmm.
of people you're doing it with. There's definitely that in skateboarding. There's definitely that in canoe racing. But
It's
the,
not.
the thing about jujitsu is you're literally in human contact with each other when you're going through this stuff.
Yeah.
You're touching each other in very close quarters, and it's a different feeling than you can get through skateboarding or
Yeah.
even a sport where, you know,
Even wrestling.
even
Not
wrestling.
even
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get the big picture that I was making them better. It
Right.
was all about me,
Right.
you know. It's opened my eyes in a lot of ways. Do you see a common trait amongst people who find their way into jiu-jitsu? That's a good one.
Yeah, I think I've seen so many people in so many different walks of life um, get into it that it's like yes and no. But I think, man, I really think there's something uh, connected with people that have suffered a lot of emotional pain in jujitsu.
Uh-huh.
Or whether it's addiction, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's just feeling lonely, feeling sad, feeling like you're not connected with people.
Hmm.
That's one of the biggest things, at least that, especially when I get to know people on a deeper level that are doing it. Um, and I think a lot of people they're kind of deep people, I guess, if that makes sense. A
Yeah.
lot of times they're introspective, uh,
And they're missing something.
and they're missing something. And jujitsu kind of gives them that thing they were missing.
Hmm.
That's what it's done for me. I've seen that. I've seen it do that for so many other people. And it's beautiful. It's truly a gift.
And how has it changed the way that you view the outside world?
Man, I think I spent a lot of time in my life looking outwards at the world and blaming other people or situations for how I feel right now. And jujitsu has given me the strength and the ability to realize that it's always up to me. No matter what's going on outside, I am in control of my emotions and I am in control of my actions. And that's changed definitely since I started doing jiu-jitsu, is taking more personal responsibility for my own happiness.
That is irreplaceable.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
There's not really. Do you think you could have attained it doing anything else?
Maybe. I don't know.
It's hard to
Not in
know.
the way that jiu-jitsu's given it to me.
And this is like right outside, literally like down the block
Yeah.
at Lake Effect.
Yep, we're right there, man. We're trying to be a shining light.
That's really special that it's come full circle in Marquette. How did you first meet Nick?
I first met Nick when we were down at in the basement there training. I walked in one day and I could see him. I could see his ears.
Yeah.
I knew right away that the man had something to offer me and help me with in my life. I didn't know what, but I just feel it. It's like there's a reason he's in my life. I just knew.
Yeah.
And from there, it took a little bit of time for us to really to connect on that level. But once we did, he's been able to help me, like I said, more than probably anyone in my life as far as that stuff goes.
Right. And when we're talking about the basement, this is different than the gym that we're training at now.
Right.
How did Lake Effect Jiu Jitsu get started on 3rd Street in the Village Shopping Complex?
It was all Nick Lauer, man. He decided that was going to be the name. I think he decided that there's only like one other place or something in the country that gets Lake Effect snow, so it's a really kind of a unique thing. As far as I know, I could be wrong on that, but it's his idea, it's his brand, and the biggest thing that he's promoted, I feel, is a good sense of community and a good sense that we are all there to make each other better, not to take anything away from anyone else. And I can't tell you how valuable that is in my life and to the gym and to the growth of his students.
Right.
The biggest thing I see in him is just someone he wants to see everyone grow as much as they can, and he's willing to give everything of himself and all he knows to do that. There's a lot of people that'll withhold information because they're afraid that you're going to somehow become greater than they ever were or better at something or take something and use it against them. He's just the most giving person, and his biggest thing is to give me and his students, like I said, all of his knowledge so that they can become great, and that's something you just don't find very much.
Yeah, how does that culture compare to other gyms that you've visited around the country?
Very different, and I've had a lot of different experiences around gyms around the country, but there's a lot of gyms that, you really don't feel like you're working with each other. You're kind of just training, and you're using each other as training partners because that's all you can do, and there's a specific atmosphere that gets an energy, I think, that gets put out in a gym when you're truly there trying to better each other. It's yeah, it's amazing.
And what's new? What's new at the gym? I mean, you guys, we started a new year, and you guys, boosted a new schedule. What's that like?
Yep, we got a new schedule. We got more fundamentals classes available to adults. We got more intermediate classes, more kids classes. I'm starting a Thai boxing program there a couple days a week on Tuesdays and Fridays. We're just trying to offer more to people in the community under one roof,
Right.
and trying to provide the best service we can to make other people's lives healthier and wholer and happier.
Yeah, trying to make accommodations for anyone who wants to get involved.
Yep.
It seems like.
Yep.
What made you decide to start that Thai boxing?
I think the biggest thing was we had some students that kind of wished that we had something like that going on, and we figured, it might get some other people interested in jiu-jitsu, if they could, have a place to come do kickboxing, they see people doing jiu-jitsu.
Mm.
Really our biggest thing is jiu-jitsu. But we also, you can get a great workout hitting Thai pads, and you can get that similar community atmosphere going. And so our biggest motivation was just to offer more classes to our students and a wider array of things they can do for exercise and health and fitness. So
That's killer. What are the different levels of participation that you see between, skills, age, gender?
Man, that's an interesting question because we have guys that have been training with us now for like a little over a year, about to get their blue belt, and they're almost 60 years old, and they
Okay.
train.
They don't compete.
They don't compete, but they train as much as some young guys do.
Yeah.
Um, and then you got as far as gender goes, my girlfriend Amanda, she does as many classes as she can get to with her job, and I
Yeah.
know if she wasn't working, she'd be there probably every single class with me.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it really truly is for everyone. And like you said, you don't have to go to every single class every day, but if you went to one class once a week for 6 months, you'll see a positive change in your life. I promise you.
Absolutely. You don't have to necessarily be at the level that you're at with,
No, of
a
course not.
class or two every day.
Yeah, right. I'm literally there twice, 2 to 3 times a day, 6 days a week, and that's not going to be what everyone wants to do, and they don't have to. If they come, like I said, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, wherever they can get it in, and you'll see improvement in your technique but you just have the patience and it'll show up.
Hmm. Why would you encourage somebody to give it a shot if they'd never heard of it, never seen it, never tried it?
Um, well, for one, I think just the level of self-confidence that you gain when you're learning to defend yourself and you're starting to become confident in the ability to do that, it really has a specific direct effect, I think, on people's self-confidence, self-esteem. And to me, it's just fun. I just think it's really fun.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to work out without feeling like you're working out. I never feel like I'm like at the gym, like just grinding through a workout on the
Reps,
treadmill or something.
right.
I'm having fun and I'm learning things while I'm exercising. So, man, I would encourage anybody that's interested to give it a shot and see whether or not you like it, and I think to me it took off right away. I was just hooked right away.
So you truly think it's for anybody?
Yeah, I believe jujitsu, like I believe jujitsu can be for anybody that wants it and is willing to show up and put the work in. And I really don't think you have to be at a certain level of fitness to start to do anything. I hear a lot of people kind of say, "Oh yeah, I'll come once I get in better shape." And it's like,
Yeah, all the
man, no,
time
you
I
can
hear that.
come and you'll get in shape. We will get you in
My
shape.
dad says that.
Right. And
I tell him, try jujitsu, go jujitsu, go jujitsu. He's
yeah,
like, I'm in no shape to do that because he thinks of wrestling. As soon as
right.
I say jujitsu, he thinks, oh, back to my wrestling days. There's no way.
Right. Well, and it's also part of that is people not being willing to be vulnerable,
Hmm.
to feel like they aren't in shape in a place where it's a physical fitness gym. You got to be in shape. You don't have to be in shape. You'll get in shape through doing it.
Hmm.
You can be in terrible shape when you start jujitsu, and it'll transform your body, your mind, everything.
I think yoga's the same way. I
Yeah,
think people say that about yoga constantly.
yeah, and it's like just go, just start showing up,
Yeah.
and you will see results. But as long as you can have the patience in that time, you'll go as far as you want to go.
Right. And do you see this community growing in the UP?
Definitely, we're definitely growing at a fast rate now that we got, Nick's got the gym open. People seeing what we're doing.
Fishbowl.
Yeah,
You can
it's
see
like,
right in there.
in a lot of ways, we're in the UP kind of behind on jiu-jitsu just because there hasn't been a gym, but now there is.
Right.
And so now I think we'll catch up to that growth a lot quicker.
Would you say the U.S. is behind in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
No, honestly, no. Like out west and out east, there's so many, like there's guys from Brazil running gyms all over in the U.S. now. So I don't think the U.S. is behind anymore. It's really blown up on the scene recently, and it's getting almost mainstream in some ways, which is scary to me, but
Yeah, has that
but it's great
created
to me. It's good because it should be mainstream, and people should be able to see it and see how much it can benefit their lives, and
has that created any kind of bad blood between like real guys with integrity who are doing it right and some posers and some haters?
um
It tends to be that way when anything gets mainstream.
yeah, no doubt. It can be, you see some of that, but man, I try to never get involved in it because it just never helps me to feel like I'm looking at somebody else
Yeah, you're
and
saying like I'm doing this right.
judging them for how they're doing it to how I'm doing it and
Yeah,
saying what I'm doing is better. I just try to focus on myself, what I'm doing, and find the most efficient and best ways that I can train to
yeah,
become the best. So, but yeah, there's definitely some of that, but I try to stay away from it.
yeah. That's authentic. Um, would you say that there is a um, the change in perception of comfort when you start practicing something like this?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I can be a lot more comfortable in uncomfortable positions or situations, I think, than someone who doesn't do anything like jujitsu or yoga or something like that.
Yeah, that might be daunting for somebody who might be interested and they go in and they get, tied in a knot real quick or they
Right,
get, halfway suffocated because someone's sitting in mount and
right.
just like putting,
Yeah, yeah, there's certainly a lot of discomfort that can go along with it, but I think the more, like I talked about earlier, the more discomfort you can overcome uh in the training room and when you're on the mat, the more you'll be able to overcome in your life.
yeah,
I really believe that. It's so and I think if you go in with that mindset that I could be put in some places that are hard and challenging and uncomfortable and I'm going
yeah,
to overcome it. I am going to overcome it.
yeah.
You will. You will.
Do you think kids are ready to learn these lessons?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Because,
I think they can be easier to learn sometimes as a kid than they can if you allow yourself to live a certain way for a certain amount of years and then try to learn it later as an adult. I think kids can
yeah,
learn that right away.
yeah.
Um,
And are they getting these lessons if they're not doing jujitsu?
oh, it depends. I mean, I think like you can get those lessons in other sports on some levels, and wrestling's got to do that for you. From if you wrestled from a kid, man, you've overcome a lot of discomfort.
Lots of matches?
Right, and in ego and all kinds of things you got to overcome. So I don't think jujitsu is the only way, but it's a very effective way, and it's also to me it touches some of those deep places that some of those other sports don't. That's good for you to feel.
Do you think schools teach these lessons?
Mm, I didn't have a great experience in public school, and I guess the biggest amount of discomfort I had to go through in public school was like not wanting to go and having to go every day.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that doesn't teach you the same lesson. I think that there's times in our um, in society where we're told you have to do a certain thing even if you don't like it, and I don't believe that's true. Uh, I think we're told that on some level from a very young age, so that we will maybe do things that we don't necessarily want to be doing, if that makes any sense. And I
Yeah.
don't.
Well, where do you think the motive is there, personally?
Oh man,
Go ahead.
it's tough.
No wrong
It's
answers.
tough to say. I think it's easy to think that the public school system is kind of setting people up to have a full-time job
Mm-hmm.
someday, and I think that's true on some level. And I also think that uh, it's set up so that their parents can go to work
Mm-hmm.
every day. Um, and do I think that that's the most effective way of raising children? No, not at all.
Don't you think that, not, I shouldn't say don't you think, but do you think that that goes against the grain of some of our primitive instincts as human beings?
Yes. I
Where
think,
where do
yeah.
you see it going against the grain the most?
Well, even like to separate a 5-year-old kid from his mom or parents for 8 hours a day
Yeah.
isn't evolutionary. That's not where we came
Hold up,
from.
Connor. Half days for
Are they
kindergartners.
doing? I heard they're doing full days now. That's what I
I
thought.
did half days as a
Yeah, I did half
kindergarten.
days, but I heard they're doing full days now.
Jeez.
And then I even think like, the way that parents have to be working a full-time job when they have kids, they end up their their kids get sent off to daycare at 6 months or a
Hmm.
year. That can have a really lasting effect on a human being to be separated from his mom for that amount of time. I really don't.
Hmm.
It's not where we came from, I don't think.
Right. Do you think things like jujitsu could potentially be the missing link in reconnecting to those instincts that we have as people?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think it can have an effect on that. And there is something. It puts you in a certain state, like I talked about earlier, that I can't get to any other way. And it does almost feel primal or something
Hmm.
like that, you know, my brain knows exactly the feeling before I ever did, like it was programmed in me, and I was able to tap into it with jujitsu, kind of, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Is there any other activities that you can combine with martial arts to get that level of understanding? For me, it's camping,
Oh, right. Yeah, I
or
think
or
when same
meditation.
thing, meditation, yoga, being outdoors, and being outdoors without technology for extended periods of time too, especially like longer than just a day or 2 days, but weeks at a time,
Yeah.
uh, can definitely almost alter your brain pathways. It feels like it's almost like you're a different person after a week of that.
Hmm. So that being said, what did you take away from the education system?
Um, Man, I honestly I feel that the biggest thing the education system did for me was give me a lot of anxiety.
That's
That
awful.
was probably the
That's
biggest thing
awful.
I took away from it. And
Yeah.
now I've spent a lot of my adult life trying to uh, combat that and find my own way and my own idea and view of the world
Yeah.
that wasn't formed for me.
Yeah.
I think uh, I had a different experience than a lot of kids because I had a lot of anxiety from a very young age that I just wasn't able to be in school without a lot of kind of mental panic almost going on, which was hard. And I don't think I'm not sure how many kids, but I know I talk to a lot of kids that are like, I see kids at the gym and I ask them, what was your favorite part of the day? And
Ugh.
coming home. Their favorite part of the day was coming home to their
You
parents.
ever ask them what they learned?
Right, and
What'd you learn
it's
today?
hard. I never usually get an answer there on what they learned. It's usually like, well,
Nothing.
nothing.
People will tell. A lot of kids will tell me nothing.
Right. So I definitely think that there's a better way we could be raising our kids and teaching them. I
Hmm.
don't think necessarily the public school system. And both my parents were teachers, and I got a lot of respect for teachers. But I think it's more the system that they have to work with that is really tough.
Hmm.
And kids go without a lot of guidance and a lot of things that they need when they get lost in that system.
Do you feel the same about your college degree?
Um, not as much. I feel like once I got to college, I thought I had an idea of what I wanted to do for a while, and that's totally changed. But I still don't regret uh, getting the getting the degree because it definitely opened my eyes to a lot. It gave me a perspective. But whether or not I'll ever use it to make money,
Yeah.
tough to know. And I certainly spent quite a bit on getting it. So
Yeah.
that's the tough thing there. But it's hard to me. It's hard to say that learning is ever wasted. Uh, but would I get it? Would I go do it again? No.
Right.
But
Why criminal justice, Connor?
well, there was a time where I thought I could handle being a police officer, and I thought I was going to do that. And then just learning about myself and everything else, I realized I could never do that job. I could
Mhm.
never. I have too much compassion for other people to be able to handle that job, I think, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying anything bad about police officers. I've met a lot of great police officers and good people that have compassion and
Mhm.
that want to help people. I'd have a hard time on the days where I couldn't help everyone. It would just be like I just know it wouldn't make me happy. But that's why I got the degree in criminal justice, and who knows, maybe I'll use it someday alongside of jiu-jitsu and helping kids that are in the system and trying to get
Mhm.
out, or
Mhm.
you never know. And the other thing it did was totally change my view as how I saw police officers, coming up. They were just these guys that harass me when I'm trying to skateboard and do what I want. And now I look at them as completely different, as good people that they're trying to make a living like everybody else, and
Mhm.
they're trying to do the best they can. And uh, we need police officers. We need good police officers, really a lot. So um,
So where did you learn most about life? Like simple things like eating or finance or life like lessons rather than history and math.
definitely in jiu-jitsu. I think.
Has that changed the way you view nutrition?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I've had a whole kind of. I've been trying to find the best foods to eat and the best fuels to give my body since I started training jiu-jitsu, and especially since I started making that certain weight class that was I had to be pretty stringent on what I ate. I had to be putting in the best kind of foods I can. I tried the ketogenic diet for a while. I tried carbs again. I've kind of went back and forth.
Mhm.
But I think it's that's certainly a lifelong journey on nutrition and constantly trying to evolve and find better foods to eat, better ways.
Mhm. What's working for you right now?
Um, I honestly, right now, I've decided to move up to that next weight class, so I haven't been having to be as stringent on
Mhm.
what I'm eating, which has been really good for me. So basically, I try to just eat as many vegetables as I can, as many different colors of vegetables I can. I've heard the term "eat the rainbow." I
Yeah.
think that's a good one for trying to get as many different nutrients as you can. Um, and then I get most of my protein through animal animals, and
Yeah.
I eat a lot of bacon. I
Yeah.
eat a lot of chicken, steak,
Yeah. Eggs.
ton of eggs, avocado, sweet potato, and
Now,
then
you've seen a difference in your performance after making this. Have you always eaten like this?
no, I definitely before I found jujitsu, I didn't even really give it much thought what I was eating. It would just be whatever I could get
Yeah.
eat. Probably way too much processed food, probably. And um, man, it's tough to say. It'd be tough to. I think it'll be telling when I can compare my performance when I was making featherweight to this new lightweight, and
Mhm.
I think I'm gonna have a lot more energy
Mhm.
because I won't have to go without carbohydrates for as long as I did to make that weight,
Yeah, I
and
was
then
kind of blown
lifting it.
away when you were doing that.
Yeah,
When
it's
you were training so hard and just going on
right.
fat.
And I was low. I was way too low. I didn't have the carbohydrate to get that muscle glycogen to have any kind of
Mhm.
explosive power. So I think I'll feel better. Now it's just about not eating too much and not
Yeah.
not going overboard on calories and things like that.
Yeah.
And you don't want to gain. If you gain weight, you want to do it slow. You don't want to just gain. If you gain 10 pounds in a week, you just gained water weight and some body fat. It
Mhm.
wasn't muscle. You can't gain that much muscle in a week. So
Right.
the biggest goal is to not become lethargic and not be eating too many calories and
Yeah,
things
stay
like that.
efficient,
But
stay
as long
effective.
as I'm eating, but then I can eat a lot as long as there's good calories, and then my body can be where it wants to be, which is huge, I think, when it comes to anything, just your mental health, even life, to allow your body to be at the weight that it wants to be at is good. As long as that weight isn't, really heavy or something like that, where you have a bunch of body fat or things like that, your body should, especially as an athlete, it needs its fuel. You got to be able to put gas in the tank if you want to get anything out of it. So,
Hmm. Do you still face temptation of alcohol and shitty foods?
oh yeah, you face that every day in American society.
Well,
That's all
why?
over the place.
Why do you think in American society we struggle so far? Where is the problem lying?
As far as like why we have such a problem with obesity and things like that, or
Yeah.
I think it's the amount of processed food we eat, and I think it's the overconsumption of carbohydrate amongst people that aren't burning any energy. Like it's a combination of a sedentary lifestyle and a poor diet.
I agree.
Um, and the amount of processed food that's in our diet,
It's a
uh,
cultural thing as well.
certainly, yeah.
I see that.
Well, I mean, and how do you celebrate anything in this with your family? You go and overeat. You go and eat until you want to pass out, right?
Yeah.
It definitely seems like it's celebrated.
And drink.
And drink
And
too.
drink,
Alcohol, yep. And alcohol is tough on your body.
But
There's
I
no
mean,
doubt.
that's an ancient practice, which is interesting to
Yeah,
me.
I think that's been around. That's not necessarily just an American thing.
You have a meal together. You're
Right,
celebrating.
right.
It's almost like
And I
a
think part of it, like it's hard.
ritual almost.
It is almost hard to overeat on
Good
like
food.
non-processed foods. Like, yeah, you eat and you're full, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm done. The problem with the processed foods is the reward systems are so high in our brain with the amount of sugar, refined sugar, or salt
Hmm.
that are in those foods that you won't stop eating it when you're full. Because the reward system that you're getting, the amount of dopamine and everything being released is so rewarding
Right.
that you just keep eating, as opposed to like with most, like, if it's good clean food, I have a hard time overeating or binge eating on like broccoli and chicken. That, like, how are you gonna even do that? That'd be tough.
Yeah, it really is.
So
Do you ever take breaks from this diet then, or cutting weight?
well, yeah, like I would kind of go for a while when I would have a competition coming up. It'd be super clean, and then once I got off, I'd kind of just eat whatever I wanted again,
Hmm.
which is not, I don't think, yeah, it's a yo-yo kind of dieting, and that's not good for your metabolism or your mind. So lately, since I decided to move up just to not step on the scale every morning and not be so worried about every little calorie that gets put in, because that has a negative impact on you
Hmm.
too. Being so like, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, oh, I can only eat this many
It does
calories,
something your
and
mindset.
your mind, it's been, and then it affects your training. If you're not like if you're not fueled up, you go to train, you're not going to get the same as good of a training session as if you had the fuel.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I think it's to my biggest recommendation for any grapplers out there, guys that want to compete at a weight, unless you can sustain that weight comfortably, move up a weight. Don't allow yourself to keep going back and cutting all the weight and then gaining the weight and then
Hmm.
cutting the weight. That will mess up your metabolism over time, and it just won't be good for
It'll
you.
mess up your body long
Yes.
term.
So that my biggest thing is like, man, find the weight your body's comfortable at. Don't cut too much. You be better than the other guy.
Hmm.
That's how you beat him, not because you were bigger. And
Hmm.
a lot of times you guys want to be big and strong, and they take away that advantage because they didn't feed themselves for a week to make the weight. How are you going to be strong on nothing? You
Hmm.
won't be. You'll just feel crappy. So
Hmm.
I've certainly been there on the mat and had nothing left to get. Like, that was one of the roughest matches of my life. I remember specifically my coach telling me to not be a victim because I was so tired and I had so little calories in me that I just felt like I couldn't even move.
Hmm.
And that sucked. So
Hmm.
it's like you got to have fuel. Got to.
So then you get to take less breaks from competing.
Yeah, that too, right. Like
If
I
you're
can, right.
sustaining.
And it's just not as hard on my mind every time I go to compete now. It's
Hmm.
just like, oh, I'm going to compete, and it's more like fun, and it's not like, oh, I gotta lose 3 pounds by this time. That's eventually that makes it not as fun.
Yeah. Do you ever take a break from competing?
Yeah,
competing? Yeah.
I kind of took like, I haven't competed since, I think it was August. So, right? No. No, I competed in October.
Hmm.
October was the last time I competed down in Charlotte, and I haven't competed since. So, and I think that's huge. I think that you got to do that for your body, for your mind, just to remind yourself that it's not the most important thing in the world. Because it's easy for me to get caught in that mindset that
Hmm.
it's just like, well, this is all that matters, and this. No, man, it's not. There's so much more to life, and you got to remind yourself of that at times, and just allow yourself to live and be okay.
Yeah. Do you do that with martial arts as well? Just completely take a break?
Oh man, no, I have a hard a week maybe like
Hmm.
is the most I can go without doing jujitsu, and it's tough for me after that. And that's a week that if I'm like out doing a trip or something like that where I'm
Yeah.
occupied with something else. But
Canoe
as
trip.
far as training
21 days
goes,
on a river.
yeah, right. As far as training goes, it's really hard for me to take time from off the mat completely. For one, that's my support system. That's all my guys. That's my family. You know, when I go
Hmm.
out to the gym, and so if I need to, if my body's feeling real beat up, I'll take a week, like it's some time off of live training,
Hmm.
and I'll just do technique or something like that. But to just not be at the gym at all, not put my gi on, and not see my family there, that's no, that's tough for me. I'm better. I'm better when I'm there, for sure.
Hmm. So you don't think you'd be okay without it?
Oh man. I know I'd be okay. It'd just be really tough. It'd be a tough I I wouldn't feel okay. I mean, I know I think I believe I can overcome any obstacle that's put in my way. So if I had to stop training for some reason, uh I think the biggest thing that would be hard is if I could just like not even go to the gym. Like if I'm injured or something, I still go and I watch
Yeah, I did that
and
for
I
a
just
while,
yeah,
man.
and I just soak up the good energy.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure on some level it'd be tough. It'd be really tough. I wouldn't want to imagine my life without jujitsu.
Well, that sounds like it's almost on the verge of being like an addiction.
Yeah,
Like you
probably
wouldn't
is.
be okay without it.
Right.
So are you using it to escape anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked a little bit about emotional pain, and I've dealt with depression and anxiety my whole life since I was the youngest age I can remember. So I certainly use jujitsu as sometimes, as an emotional escape. But I think honestly, I feel like lately it's less of what I'm escaping from and more I'm it's almost you feel like you can deal with some of that pain that's been stuck in you for a long time, in a hard training session. Sometimes it lets it out. It's like yoga where like it touches those deep places that some emotion's been stuck for so long and it lets it out.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean it's certainly been my biggest treatment for mental health issues that I've suffered from in my life, no doubt.
So you believe that's the healthiest way for you to deal with it?
Yes, yeah, 100%. I've dealt with it in ways that haven't been healthy in my life, and it never gets me anywhere. But this, I feel like it's helping me move forward in life while at the same time helping me deal with a lot of those, just that pain, just that exists.
One thing that I admire is how open you are to talking about it.
Thank you. I try to always be open because I know there's a huge stigma behind mental health issues and no one wants to talk about it and people are kind of ashamed of it almost it seems like and one of the biggest reasons that I try to be open about it is because I don't ever want anyone to feel uh, alone in it. That's one of the hardest things is when you feel alone in your suffering and your mental pain, and I don't ever wish that upon anyone else. Um, and I want to be open about it so it encourages and inspires other people to also be open about it.
That's so like giving from your heart. It almost, I mean, do you believe that it's fate or randomness that you're faced with this? Because I feel like you're touching people not only right now, but in your day-to-day life at the gym.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to know or whether or not I even believe in fate or what that is, but I do know that I was given a certain set of circumstances, which, man, I'm so grateful for in so many ways. I've had an amazing life, an amazing upbringing, but at the same time, I've dealt with a lot of internal pain, and I believe that pain has guided me to the place I'm at now, and the place that really makes me want to help other people.
So you're making progress.
Yeah, I'm making huge progress in my journey, uh, and in turn, I hope to help other people's progress. I mean, I won't lie. There's days where I struggle hard, and there's days that it gets dark and it gets scary and it gets challenging. But I'm not as alone in it as I used to be because of jiu-jitsu, because of the community I've built, and I want to encourage other people to do the same.
What makes you truly happy?
I think the biggest thing that makes me truly happy is knowing that I've affected positive change in someone else's life. To know and to see the look on a kid's face, when he got a technique right or he did something good or
Mm-hmm.
just making it through class, that I can't explain the level of joy that brings me. It's just something completely new and foreign to any amount of joy I'd ever experienced up to that point. So I think just feeling like I'm helping other people grow is probably the best feeling and the happiest I ever feel.
And you're seeking the truth, finding your true potential to make a difference.
That's my goal, certainly.
Why do you think seeking the truth, good, bad, or ugly, is so important?
I think it's really easy in this life to become distracted by things that aren't important or that don't truly matter. And one thing that seeking the truth for me has always done is pointed me in the direction of things that truly matter to me and to my heart and to my soul. And when I can seek the truth, it brings me back to that. Even if I get off my path for a minute, as long as I'm always seeking that ultimate truth, it brings me back, and it brings me back towards the light and towards where I want to go.
Do you believe in failure?
I've contemplated that question quite a bit in my life because it's like, you go out with a certain goal and you don't get it. And, some people call that failure. Others people call it opportunity. And so I think things exist however we want to make them exist in our lives. And if we want to make failure a bad thing, it can be that. But failure, like we said, talked about earlier, can be your biggest means to improving your life, and your best way and best guiding light towards where you want to go is failure. So it's hard to say that you failed. I think the biggest way you can fail in life is to not try, to not give it your all. You failed then.
Or
Then
quit.
then failure exists. But if you made it, if you didn't give up, even if it wasn't the way you thought, you didn't fail. You didn't fail. You're on your way.
Mm-hmm. It's like you're either growing or you're dead.
Yes.
Either you're growing or you're dead. That's why failure.
Well, there is no losing in jiu-jitsu. We either win or we learn,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's huge in life.
Are you confident?
I'm confident in my ability to overcome. Yes, I am.
Why?
Repetition. I've done it a lot of times in my life. I've been in the dirt. I've been as low as I feel like I can ever go, and I've always been able to come out the other side. So that gives me the confidence to know there will be dark times ahead, and I will overcome them every single time. Yes.
What are you afraid of?
My biggest fear is not being my true self, and allowing myself to go in a direction that I didn't truly want to, for something that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. And where are you heading in terms of the future?
I'm heading towards progress, towards spiritual enlightenment, towards helping others, and towards just being the best jiu-jitsu practitioner I can be. And that means not just in my technique on the mat, but the way I live my life and the person I am and how I treat other human beings.
What's your ultimate goal for humanity?
To
We're at
love each other more.
love.
To just love each other more. Love your neighbor. Love that person next to you. Love that person that's pissing you off at work. Just, I don't feel that hatred gets us anywhere but stuck.
Hmm.
And love is the way past that. And so I'd just love to see people care about each other a little more. Maybe take a little more time out of their day to help somebody else and not be so constantly wrapped up in our own issues that we don't even have the time of day to smile at somebody. I can't tell you how much it can mean to somebody to just smile at them when you walk by. So
I'm with you, brother. I love you, man.
I love you too. I
For
love you too,
sure.
my friend.
It was it's awesome that as a fighter you're able to say these things like love is, what's really important, and that's your ultimate goal as a fighter is for people to love each other more, and I don't think a lot of people would see that. So it's been an honor talking with you, man.
Right back at you, my
I
friend.
really love having you on, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, guys. Ride the waves, dude.